So today I want to break down how I made the VSL that generated 1.5 million in revenue for my agency. If you don't know who I am, my name is George. I'm the founder and CEO of Paid House Media and the Advertising Co. And today I'm going to walk you through exactly how I would structure a VSL in 2026. Now, if you don't know what a VSL is, it's a video sales letter. Essentially, it is a short or can be long video that you put on a landing page or a website to help warm up the visitors and help sell them on the product or service you're selling, okay? If done right, it can slash your customer acquisition costs in half, increase the amount you're able to charge, and massively improve your close rates. So listen up, stay to the end of this video, because if you get your VSL right in 2026, it can be absolutely life-changing. So I'm going to jump into my board here and we're going to get into it. Okay, so we've got quite a few things to cover here. The main objective is to teach you guys how to create a, 1.5 million, maybe more VSL video sales letter in 2026. Let's jump into it. So the first thing is the structure, okay? This is the structure that I personally follow. We start with the hook and the introduction. We go into the big, hairy problem and the solution, or sort of why you really need to solve this problem now, the urgency creation. We're then going to jump into some social proof, some expected ROI and results, jump into the offer and the guarantee, and then jump into the final CTA, and then maybe you might want to have some FAQs or some objection handles at the end. This is the VSL structure that I have personally used, and then I see a lot of other people using in the space, okay? Now, if you are a B2B agency, which you probably are, if you're an agency, you're selling to other businesses, your VSL should be 5 to 10 minutes long. This is a very strong belief that I hold. And the reason I hold this belief is because if you're selling to people, if you're selling to businesses, businesses are usually busy. It's in the name, right? They have a lot of messages to answer, things to do, services to provide. And so if you have a 40-minute long VSL on your page, it's just not going to get the engagement necessary to work, right? If a B2B prospect, especially high-level ones, if you're really selling to people who are, doing maybe multi-6, 7 figures plus, even more than that a year, if they see your VSL's 5 minutes long, they're probably going to give you the time of day. If it's 50 minutes long, there's no way. In my experience, longer VSLs works better for B2C, business to customer. So people are significantly less busy, do have the time to watch a very long VSL, and probably need to watch that long of a VSL because they're extremely skeptical and they have a lot of fear. Whereas with businesses, typically, if you're providing a service that they can wrap their heads around, they don't need to be warmed up quite as much as that, okay? So, some examples. Now, I'm not saying mine is necessarily gold standard, but it has made us a lot of money. So we have my own VSL here. I'm going to leave the link to this in the description so you can just go and check it out. You can copy it, feel free. Ours is about 8 minutes long, I believe, 8 to 9 minutes long, and it follows this structure very, very closely. As I said, it's made us over 1.5 million in revenue. Another one here is Viral Coach. Okay, very successful agency, do significantly more revenue than me. And you'll notice his is 5 minutes long on the dot. Okay, there's no coincidence that this founder does this because he knows what he's doing. Okay, so that his VSL is 5 minutes long. And then another one here is ListKit. Okay, this is for their done for you service. This is a bit longer. This is actually around like 20 minutes, but it does follow a very similar structure to what I'm outlining. Okay, so if you want to go and check those out, you can. Now, jumping into how we actually build out the VSL in detail. Okay, so get your pen and paper out and let's write you a VSL. Okay, now hook and introduction. The first 2 to 3 minutes do all the heavy lifting. Okay, you need to treat this as a standalone sales pitch. So very, very important lesson here. Really, people are going to drop off significantly after the 2 minute mark. Your engagement is going to look like this, right? Kind of similar to how a YouTube video would look. If this is time along the x-axis and this is viewer retention on the y-axis, it's going to go down significantly. So you really want to get a very strong hook in, because if your hook is good, it's going to increase the amount of time that people watch. And you really want to get your offer in within the first 2 minutes as well here, which I'm going to explain to you in a second. But the way I structure hooks is a direct call out. So again, very similar to how I script ads. We're starting with a direct call out to repel people that we don't want, going through our funnel and that we don't want going through or even watching our VSL. So if you're an e-commerce brand, or if you're a kitchen remodeler, or if you're a lawyer, I will help you get 20 jobs a month, or I will help you get, increase your brand's revenue by 50% through our unique mechanism, okay? If you don't have a unique mechanism in your business yet, make one, all right? This is a really strong marketing concept. Unique mechanism naming, essentially your unique process okay? Give it a name and really explain and position how it is different from everything else that your customer, your ICP, might have tried in the past. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. All right, jump in and state the benefit, just like we've done for a number of all these other different ICPs. That way you can, benefit. And if you've tried common failure before, then this is completely different. Now, if you are an agency, you will know that a lot of your prospects have worked with agencies in the past and they've had terrible results. So this is super important. This is going to be a question that you get a lot on your sales calls, and it's going to be a question that you need to address in your VSL. Okay, and then here you go. Here is the early CTA that we are making. So if that sounds good to you and you just know you need to do this, then you can click the button below. But if you want more information, then keep watching. That's just going to give the action takers an excuse to click and book a call within the first 1 to 2 minutes here. All right. Another sneaky pro tip, if you want to really understand what you should say in your VSL, because again, it's all that you say. Like, you can make a 5-minute VSL that follows all of these tips, but if you don't say the right things so that your prospect wants to hear, it's just not going to be effective as a VSL where you do say the right things. And so one of the ways that you can choose what to say in your VSL is by throwing your sales calls into an AI. So throw it into ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. Ask it, hey, analyze all of my most common objections and write them down. So objection 1, objection 2, etc. And I want you to address all of those, and also ask it to rank them as well in terms of like how much it comes up and how big of a deal it is. Definitely address the biggest ones in the hook, but make sure you address all of them in your 5 to 10 minute VSL if you can. Now, as I said, there's going to be an early checkpoint. Okay, this gives fast lane people permission to just take action. And as I said, you can sort of say the hook, and then you can be like, now, if that sounds exactly like what you've been looking for, just click the button below. If you just want to skip all this, don't want to hear me talk, and you just want to book a call with my team, go ahead and do that. And then you explain. You can keep watching if you want to understand more. Now, next is introduction. So why should they listen to you? You need to give a good reason. So you need to give who you are, what you've done, whether it's that you've scaled your own company in their space or that you've just helped really, a couple of well-known companies scale in their space, how long you've been doing it for, why you're so good at it, why you're qualified, etc. Otherwise, why should they sit around for 5 to 10 minutes and even listen to you, right? And trust what you say. For example, let's take a quick step back. I'll tell you who I am and why you should listen to me. My name is, George Clements. I'm the founder and CEO at Paid House. I've spent over $50 million on ads and I've scaled XYZ brand, etc. So that's another important piece. Now, you'll notice if you do go watch this VSL here, the Viral Coach VSL, he does a great job in the first few seconds of doing the hook. His whole VSL starts with, we'll get you 1 million views or you don't even pay. Boom. Huge hook, huge bold promise, very, very attention grabbing. And that's why that VSL hooks you in and really makes you watch that whole 5-minute thing. Now, jumping into the big hairy problem and the sort of solutions around it. Okay. So the whole purpose of this is to really build up a lot of pain and a lot of urgency. Like, what you guys are probably missing if you're finding sales hard and like converting cold traffic especially hard, if you're running paid ads for your agency, if you're running cold outbound for your agency, a VSL will help with all of these things, by the way. You want to film one really good VSL, you obviously want to put it on your website, but you also want to put it obviously on your paid ads funnel as well. Okay, so that means that if people are coming from content, if they're coming from cold email, they're going to get nurtured by this VSL. I wouldn't recommend filming different VSLs for a website versus a funnel because it's just diluting the quality. Okay, if you have to film multiple VSLs, if you put all the energy into that, you're not going to make as good a VSL as if you just poured all your energy into making one, if that makes sense. So you really need to create a lot of urgency. And as I said, I think if you're struggling, you probably just don't have enough urgency in your sales process, right? If you look at people selling, for an example, an AI agency service, right? Or, AI agency service, AI agency coaching, anything around that, they do this step in their VSLs extremely well because they tap into the massive FOMO around AI. It's a $1.8 trillion industry. The market is growing at XYZ rate. If you miss out on this now, you're never going to be able to tap into the solution again. It's a huge problem that they create for you and a huge amount of urgency. Okay. Now, of course, if you're not in AI, that's totally fine. You can still create this urgency through other methods. Maybe you want to talk about the Meta Andromeda update. This is a very big narrative in e-commerce and anyone who runs Facebook ads. Maybe you want to talk about the fact about what they're missing out with if they're not, in our case, running ads, right? So for example, for my consulting business, the Advertising Co., we center around the fact that without ads, you have no predictability in your business, in your agency. So I touch on the fact that if you're not running ads for your agency, you're going to have inconsistent lead flow, feast and famine, low predictability, less enterprise value. You're not going to be able to sell your agency because you don't have predictability. You might be fully relying on your personal brand or something like cold outbound. You might be running ads, but your cost per call is too high. Profitability is low. You can't scale the spend. You're trapped. And then finally, even if you are doing the first two things right, you still might be struggling to build a sales motion. So you're taking all the sales calls, you're exhausted, you have no time, you've got no systems, no fulfillment, and you need to build a sales motion so that you can step back and focus on systems. All right. So if any of those problems sound like you can book a call using the link below, speak to me, and I can help you with those problems, but that is just an example, okay? This is not one big VSL, I promise. It's not like some meta concept that we're engaged in here. But anyway, so that's an example of a big problem that you have to introduce, and that has to create a lot of urgency. Then you want to kind of introduce the false solution, all right? So what have most of your prospects tried before? Okay, a lot of your case, like for us, for Paid House, we really demonized meta ads, okay? So we would be like, look, you're spending all your time, all your money, all your headspace on Facebook ads. By the way, side note, I think meta ads are great, but I do think for e-commerce brands specifically, less so for B2B, they are over-relied on, okay? I've got nothing against having, multiple different channels, and that was our whole sales argument at Paid House. We were like, look, you should diversify away from meta ads once you're at the point where you're spending thousands of dollars a day profitably, like most of our clients were. And so that was kind of our false solution, is stop banging your head against the wall trying to get from 3K a day in spend to 5K a day in spend. It's going to be so much easier for you to take that and just diversify into a new channel, which is at zero, because obviously you get diminishing returns as you scale with one channel. But if you unlock a new channel, you're going to get extremely exponential returns, okay? And so that was our main false solution, as well as we would also bash agencies as well, especially when we were running our setup offer. We would bash agencies, and even when we weren't, we would still try and bash, other agencies. We would bash, in-house teams because of how expensive and slow moving they can be. We would bash freelancers. We had a load of false solutions that they had possibly tried before, and we really positioned ourselves as the only solution that they could pick. And so this works because of something called cognitive dissonance. So your brain cannot really hold on to two opposing ideas without feeling tension and conflict, okay? You've obviously got to have trust first at this point, which is really built during the introductory phase, okay? Which is here, all right? So in this phase, you're going to be able to build the trust, which is going to allow you to do this. If you don't have this, then the whole process is going to be a lot harder, right? You need to find some way for them to trust you. And if you don't have that, maybe making a VSL isn't even the right decision for you. I want to make this very clear, by the way. You don't have to make a VSL. You can just send, especially if you're running paid traffic, or if you have a website, you don't have to have a VSL, okay? You can just send, in the case of paid traffic, you can send it to a page with a headline and an application form. You don't have to have a VSL. And again, if you're new to this space, you might not know what's going to work. You might not have the case studies to put into the VSL. You might not have a lot of these things. And so making one is going to be pointless. It might even hurt your results more than it helps, versus just sending it to an application. The whole point of a VSL is that it will beat this because it's so good. All right. Now remember, this sending traffic, this called an application funnel, sending traffic just to a page with an application on, is lower friction than having a VSL. To be clear, a VSL is friction point because, you're basically asking the prospect, hey, before you do anything, watch this 5 to 10 minute video. It's like huge point of friction here. People are busy versus just sending them to an application. But if you do it right, it will convince them so much and warm them up so much that it will be worth it. All right. So I want to make that clear. Obviously, this is a way of breaking down the false solution. So most ICP, whatever your ICP is, think that they can't get result because of this. So they try agencies, freelancers, in-house teams, whatever it is, and it gets them back in their painful, frustrating outcome. They can't break past 100K a month still, or they can't break past $1 million a month, even though they've tried all these things. Now we introduce our real solution, or our unique mech, okay? This is really the time where you build your mechanism as the only solution in their mind. It's the perfect opportunity, okay? And so when you introduce this, you need to make sure that you describe what it is, the list of characteristics that make it perfect. So in our case, with the Google Ads offer, it was like, you don't have to pay an expensive in-house team. You don't have to learn all of this yourself and spend hours doing it, right? You don't have to go and hunt for another fly-by-night agency. And then when you have this installed, you're going to be able to scale predictably. You're going to be able to sell the business, etc., etc. And so then you want to reinstate the big promise, okay? Now we're getting into the unique mechanism. This is the point where we drop our process, our solution to that big hairy problem. We want to reinstate the core transformation, tie this to the mechanism itself, and use emotional language. So for example, this is exactly what we helped you install inside of your mechanism, your process. It's a description specifically for ICP, benefit without pain. All right. So this is an example of how I would drop my process. And it really helps, by the way, just sort of side point, to have some kind of a diagram here. I know this kind of sounds like a menial point, but really just take the time to map out your process in a Miro board, just like this in Figma, so people can visualize it. Most of the successful agencies that I see have this, because selling a service, it's impalpable. You're selling thin air initially, right? You don't have to have this with a physical product, right? If I'm selling a Hermes bracelet, right? I can see the value of this. It looks nice, right? But with a service, you need to be able to map out, where's this taking me over the next 3 months, 6 months? Where's it going to get me, etc. Okay. Super important to have this when you jump into the solution. Okay. Now, of course, Once we've dropped the solution and the mechanism, we need to prove that it works. So then we get into social proof, okay? So I like to call this bit expected ROI and results. So what should they expect from working with you? Okay, I wouldn't call this case studies or social proof. I would call this expected ROI and results because it's just a little bit more technical, better B2B language, okay? When you're dropping your case studies and your social proof, who you helped and what industry they're in, what you helped them do, how you helped them do it, giving 3 specific case studies at least is good. And if you can visually show pictures of the clients and the screenshots of the results, that's going to be even better. Now, quick side note while I remember, what's going to really help your conversion rate is a couple of things, is making sure you have chapters here with all of these things that I'm walking you through marked out, okay? Now, I wouldn't call them quite as I wouldn't call them hook, early CTA. I would just call them intro here. Maybe I would call this the intro, and I would call this about us or about me, and I would call this the problem or the opportunity of some kind, whatever, if you have a name for it, the AI gold rush or the whatever, or why you need to send more emails or something like that, why this is different, okay? And then, this part is where you would name your unique mech, okay? And then this part, as I said, expected ROI and results. So having these chapters is going to really improve your conversion because people are going to be able to jump to what they want to see. And make sure as well you're using a video thumbnail. Just improve CTR ever so slightly when people are landing on your page. Okay, so back to now step 4. So again, depending on how long your VSL is getting here, as I said, really 10 minutes is the absolute maximum. Ideally, if we can find a way to do this in 5 minutes, that would be great. But yeah, step 4, obviously you've got to drop the offer. You might not want to do too much objection handling. You can save that for actually the thank you page once they've booked a call, and even on the setting calls and stuff like that you do. But obviously dropping in the deliverables is really important, okay? So dropping in your deliverables before you get into price, you say, so we're going to do this for you, this for you, this for you, this for you, this for you. Basically take your unique mechanism and the diagram that you've just made and just list it out extensively. So I'm going to set up your conversion track, I'm going to set up your VSL, email flows, ad scripts, or whatever it is. And then obviously you want to explain the benefits of this, and it's basically just going to look like this, right? Just an extensive list of what you're going to do for them, kind of overwhelms them with value, all right? It doesn't have to be this extensive. You may want to simplify it, but I just think this is pretty effective, okay? And then obviously you want to jump into offer and pricing. Now, this is optional, to be clear, especially if you're selling something super high ticket. It could actually hurt your conversion rates to have a 20K, 30K price tag just chilling in here. So some people don't drop the price. There are advantages of dropping the price though. It can massively, significantly decrease the amount of time wasters you get on the call and the amount of unqualified calls that you get. If you put, pricing as one of your chapters, you're going to see a lot of people jumping to there, obviously to understand the pricing. You get a big spike in engagement around here. So it's very effective. It might not be something that you want to drop in your first version of the VSL. I would probably avoid doing that. But if you find consistently that you're getting on calls with unqualified prospects, then this is a lever that I would pull to reduce that basically. Okay. And then I do recommend running a guarantee, especially if you're running a straight up just retainer offer. So if you're running like a setup offer, so one-time payment or a free trial offer, you don't need obviously a guarantee because your offer is the risk reversal there. But if you intend to just sell people into a 3K a month package or an 8K quarterly package or whatever, it does help to have a guarantee that. It does make it a bit of an offer. It's going to make your ads compelling. It's going to make your VSL compelling. I know a lot of people don't like guarantees, but one of the most successful agencies in the world guarantees you 1 million views or you don't pay. So clearly they do work. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can just be a satisfaction guarantee. And so that is going to make your VSL a lot more compelling, especially if you have a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people who are still here and they're just still not sold. This will probably push them over the edge. All right. And then of course, finally, you want to jump into your final CTA. So if you're still stuck under 100K a month and you want to scale to 7 and multi-7 figures in the next 6 to 12 months, then this is exactly what we help you do with the Advertising Co. We work one-to-one to help you set up your ads, produce a scalable sales motion, productize your fulfillment so that you can sign 20 clients a month within your first 3 months working with us, okay? And we've done this for a bunch of agencies, including myself. And then you actually explain what happens on the call. That's useful, so it doesn't feel like a sales call. It actually feels like more of a strategic call. So on the call, we're going to look at your marketing process so far, and I'll show you what's broken and how we fix it, et cetera, et cetera. And then obviously you want to say, what's the worst that can happen? You book a quick call with us and you don't like it. Well, no worries. You don't lose anything. You're just going to walk away and we'll point you in the right direction. Okay. And so that's the final CTA. Now you can continue and address some more FAQs and objections, but again, I think that should be left to after they've booked in a call. And then on the thank you page, you can actually have what we call these breakout videos. So the page would look something like this. You've got your headline. You've got like a main sort of 2-minute video here, basically saying confirm your invite on Google Calendar and show up to the call in a quiet place. And then you're going to have these little breakout videos down here, which are all going to address specific objections. Okay. And I just think that's a good way of shortening down your main VSL. So I know that's a lot. Kind of seems like, how the hell could I even split this down into 5 to 10 minutes? You don't have to necessarily put absolutely everything in there that I've shown you. I do think your main objective should be to make it short, snappy, and very easily watchable, so you get the most people interacting with you and benefiting from the VSL. All right. Quickly as well, in terms of KPIs to be looking for, typically you're seeing 20% play rates with B2B VSLs and 20 to 30% engagement rates. All right. So that's crazy. I know only 1 in 5 people are even clicking on the VSL to watch it. Now, if you are absolutely nailing your ads and nailing your targeting and nailing your headline as well, because the headline influences how many people play the VSL, you could be seeing much of an excess of this, which is, if that's you, that's great. If you're seeing much below this, then we've definitely got a problem. We need to do a couple of things. We need to improve the headline, improve the ads, improve the targeting, make sure you've got the chapters and the video thumbnail and all that good stuff. Make sure your funnel's not too long as well. If your funnel's super long, people are just going to scroll like crazy and just ignore your VSL. That's why I like short funnels. Okay. And so, just keep in mind that funnels are not linear. People are not just going to watch your full ad and then watch your full VSL and then book a call and basically do everything that you want them to. As I said, pretty much 1 in 5 people are going to watch it that click. But out of those 1 in 5 people, our hope is that they will at least get to minute 2, minute 3, whatever, and, hear the offer, hear the hook, hear a bit of your introduction maybe, and be extremely bought in by the time they get to the sales call. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you want help with any process when it comes to paid ads for your agency and scaling up your marketing, scaling up your sales team, and productizing your fulfillment so you can scale to 100K a month plus in 2026, then book a one-to-one call with me and I'll show you exactly how our whole process works and how working one-to-one with me works. Okay. However, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Just keep watching the videos for free. It's totally up to you. All right. Appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.